Don't waste my time. Don't waste my I can live forever, but I need.
Hello, welcome to Honey the Photographers here. We're in episode 4, and today we've got the awesome team from Ray White Yass. And I thought it'd be perfect because Connor here made a really interesting video on social media about why selling in winter is a bad thing or is it not? And that's what we're going to unpack today in today's episode. So, boys, welcome and thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us, Pat.
No worries, not at all. So I want to dissect this first of all. And George, you were talking off camera before about there's a bit of a history behind selling in winter. So yeah, why is it? Why is there a perception that people don't want to sell in winter?
We probably saw a shift, Pat, be 6 or 7 years ago now, where we went from, as agents, we could take a good holiday at in the summer and then also a good holiday in winter, and it was generally a bit of a theme. A lot of the solicitors followed suit as well with that, and then we found that people just started to transact basically based on their life story, what was happening in their life rather than what was happening in the season. But traditionally, it was wait until spring, things look good in spring. The problem was people were also needing to buy in spring. So if they were selling in spring, they'd be then trying to buy a property to upgrade or downgrade or do what they needed to do for their life in that sort of December market when stock is generally a little bit lower.
Yeah, right. So does that mean has that shifted over the last couple of years, or is it still a trend down on winter?
Yeah, there is a little bit of a trend there still of people waiting for that spring market. However, we've seen a shift with people now basically selling when they need to sell rather than waiting for the season to look good. You have to be appropriate. I think photography is a very important part. Obviously, we're not just sitting on your couch here today talking about photography, but it is very important that people understand that you can't really go and use autumn photos or spring photos in a winter marketing campaign. However, people are still buying. They're still selling. They want to get out there and get amongst it.
Yeah, awesome. And Connor, what's your take on selling in winter? You were the one who initiated the whole thing, so I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and opinion on winter sales.
Look, I think it's actually a really, really good time to sell. Obviously, with agents, they have a lot of energy. It doesn't really matter when's a good time to sell. But we find that, winter time we see competition's nice and low, which means when you go and put your house on the market, you get the most amount of eyes on it. And we find as long as it's marketed well and looks good in photos, we still get a lot of people through. We get a lot of people around looking at houses and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so stock's low, competition's low. You get the most amount of eyes, and we find we find quite a bit of success around there.
Yeah, awesome. So when it comes to marketing properties and just in general putting them on in winter, there's obviously some myths involved around that. Number one, I think people don't like to put their property on the market because it's wintertime and everything looks dead and dying. But I actually think from a photography perspective, it actually gives you the opportunity to do something differently and be a bit more creative in what it is that you come up with. What kind of and I'm actually going to give this one to Harris. What kind of things do you typically see that we do for our campaigns to help the winter market and shoot them a little bit differently or to market them a little bit differently?
Yeah, if you're dealing with a property that isn't necessarily based off its large landscaping and garden, you can put more of a focus on the house. So little things that you can do when you're doing your photography shoots. What we talk to you about is getting fires turned on, creating a bit more warmth in the house. If you can get a bit more of that evening or afternoon sun, just to get a little bit more of a glow in there, you can try and create a sense of warmth, and that's what you want. When you're buying a home is meant to be warm, and even if it is winter, you can still go down that route and get a really good marketing campaign put together and get some really good photos.
So let's dissect that a bit more. You said about warm. There's a bit of psychology around putting together an open home in winter. What are some of the things that you do in winter for open homes to help make it, or just in general, to help make it a bit more lively and exciting and not just an empty shell that you're looking at?
We actually have a lot of fun with it in winter. I think you'll remember one of the properties we had last year. It was out in Yass there, and we'd make sure they had the fire lit every time before we had an open home.
Yeah.
We'd have some nice music on, have a few candles lit, things like that makes it more inviting, welcoming. People can come in and they can sort of envisage what it's going to be like during the winter months, which is one of those things that you have to live with when you're down in the capital region. It does get a bit cooler during the winter.
Yeah,
So
100%.
if your home's not warm in the winter, it's probably not one you want to do. So if you can showcase how warm it can be, makes it more enjoyable for the
Think
person looking to buy.
Crank the heater as well.
Yeah,
I think
crank
that's
it.
a big one. Yeah. So when the door's open, it's still,
Yeah.
nice and warm.
Also means, Pat, which I love, you can get that winter wardrobe that all agents have and show off that overcoat that you paid way too much money.
Yeah, Harrison's really looking
I'm
forward to get his house.
still waiting for the cold blast to come.
From Vinny's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hand me down.
But it takes me back. There was a place we sold in the middle of winter, 501 East Talagandra Lane. It was a bit of a funny shoot, actually. Managed to shoot it with a drone. The wind was at about 45 k's an hour. It was really, really bad day. Anyway, we got this photo shoot done. I'm still, a country kid from Western Queensland at heart. And it started snowing during the middle of the open home. We had all these fires going. And I was outside like playing in the snow and people were trying to ask me questions. We had a heap of people there. So it didn't stop them from coming out and having a look.
Dissect that a bit more with the psychology behind open homes. Like, what are we trying to create when having an open home, and buyers walk through? Obviously, they're looking at their house, but it's not a house; it's a home. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about the feeling I think that we're trying to create when creating open homes.
Yeah, again, there's been a history of depersonalising homes, and that's okay when you're operating in a metropolitan market. I think that's quite important.
Especially when you have a lot of an apartment stock, right, and stuff that just are stock standard shells. You understand it's got four walls and a kitchen and bathroom, but the market that you guys are in, these are they're starting at $1.5 million properties, and they're not houses anymore. They're homes, and they're people's lifestyle and the way that they live. And I think what you guys create with the open home experience is something special in terms of making them feel friendly and homely. Am I correct in saying that?
And we put a lot of effort into our open homes. We definitely don't take buyers around and point out that that's the kitchen, just in case they were wondering if it was that or the master bedroom. But we do focus on that warm and friendly environment. It's obviously a way of them coming out and interacting with the physical location of the property, on a Saturday or a Sunday and coming out and checking it out. And then from that, we always encourage our buyers, there's an alternative reason too. We don't want them to go and look at other agents' stock. We always encourage them to duck down to one of the local cafes or the pub and engage with the local community so they can get a feel of what they're actually going to be dealing with. So it is beyond the open home as such, but during the open home, it's about allowing them to go and experience the home in their own way and understand what they're getting themselves into when they write out a big bet.
Is there any properties that you guys can think off the top of your head that have been, pardon me, in winter and that have sold because of a winter campaign? Is there anything that you can think of?
So basically, it was a 4-bedroom home in the Fairley Estate in Murray Bateman, 9 William Street, owned by a lovely family who, they definitely personalised the home. So there was family photos, there was all this sort of stuff, and it was just nice and cozy when you walked in. But basically, 3 bedrooms in the main house, then there's a double garage, and then there's a 1-bedroom studio where they put the sun in. But it was just a really nice campaign through winter last year. They always had the fire on, the electric heater. So you walked in and they had the fire going and all that sort of stuff, and it was just you could tell they put
That little
effort
bit
into
extra
it.
that we do, yeah.
And
So-
the music on as well.
Bit of music.
Yeah.
They had the blankets around and all that sort of stuff. So you walked in and it looked cozy, it looked nice. Music was going, candles were going, blankets were around, and you walked in, even though it had hardwood floor, whatever it was, it just felt soft. It felt inviting, and everyone that came in felt that warm, cozy energy as well, which is what we found.
Yeah, 100%.
And the owners did a lot of work around the house to make it presentable and all that sort of stuff. But Pat, what do you think as a marketing perspective?
So yeah, I think this one was really good because we picked it in a twilight sort of shoot. So in
Yeah.
wintertime, it's so much easier to do twilight because twilight starts at like 5:30, 6 o'clock as opposed to 9 p.m. in the middle of summer. And B, we made sure that the colors were like warm and pastelly throughout, so making sure that we could capture each one of those vibrant moments and elements. And a lot of what we do with the photography is find those lifestyle or those little hidden elements or moments within the home and actually zero in on those both in the video and in the photography. I remember quite clearly now there was a shot in the video where we spun the camera in the video through the fireplace down nice and low so you could actually understand um, that it is a warm and inviting sort of place. And I mean, apart from that, the home spoke for itself. When you have a fire lit and then you have high vaulted ceilings and like cozy spaces, it shows off that it's a cozy, comfy home rather than a big, wide open landscape as opposed to that. So, that's some of the things that we look at when we try and do the marketing side of things for, getting homes on the market. But I think we also play in, and this is why I brought you guys in particularly, is what we do, regardless if it's winter or not, we tend to stage them and do way more into the heavy and the lifestyle side of shooting and marketing campaigns because we find people connect with those a way easier than just talking about stock standard cold shell apartments and all those elements that create that. So this could be anywhere from getting horses involved on the market to riding motorbikes to having a picnic set up to outdoor setting up or a barbecue setting or the dining table set. All those sort of fun things all go a really long way, and just that extra next level for you as agents to show that we're heavily involved in the marketing of this property, because it's a good 90% of what it is to get the property sold, and going that extra mile to make the property special and get it listed. So yeah. It's really cool.
And I think that's important, very important point, Pat. One of the successes of our marketing is exactly that, bringing the humans into the photos.
Yeah.
Humans like to look at other humans. And when you have made that life decision that purchasing a property is right for you, the seasonal effect we've got a very moderate climate here. We're not going from extremes like they do in Canada or anything like that, where you physically can't go and look at property. But what we have here is when you've made that decision, you go out there and you inspect the properties, but you're also doing that visual inspection online and through the video, which is very important. And if you don't get that right, we're not going to be able to sell the inspection.
100%.
We're not operating in a market where we only have 5 listings at any one time. We are competing for people's time on a Saturday or a Sunday when they need to make decisions about what they look at.
We're a portal of hundreds of listings. How does your listing stand out above the rest? And it's all to do with starting at the hero shot first, making sure that is absolutely A1 tip top, and then inviting the story all the way through with the sequence of photos that are created, and then into the video and whatever other marketing material you have.
And it's a storytelling about that property, and that's why most of the time I'm adverse to dehumanizing a property. So what we find in our marketing is that when we go out there as a team, there may be parts of it that needs to be decluttered or made more ready for photography, but overall we're sort of telling this story about why would you come and live that lifestyle in Yass or Murray Bateman or other parts of the capital region if you can comfortably stay where you are. Because you don't have to come and spend a lot of money in our market to enjoy what the area's got on offer. We're encouraging people, and it does start with our photography.
Yeah.
If we don't get that right, if we don't get that, especially in winter, if we don't get that warm, efficient, cozy home feel in the photography, then we're starting on the back burner because of that competition when it comes to Saturday, Sunday open homes.
And that's the difference between an average sales agent and the next level sales agent who understand every component that's involved into making a home sale, and making sure that we've got every area sort of covered. Which brings me to a really good point, and I know Harrison can fill in because it's a bugbear of his, is agent intros and how they're structured, especially because I think George has traditional side agent intros and we have tried to create something a bit more modern. So I wanted to, put it in your court. What do you think of agent intros for video, and how are we starting to structure ours a little bit differently to what the regular market?
It's not just me, Connor and I. We've had quite a few discussions. We're lucky enough that we've got a bit of that ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
We've come into the market. We've only been in a bit over 18 months, and we're just seeing a lot of agents doing the same things, and we want to do something different. We pride ourselves in putting a lot of work into our marketing, into our videos. We don't just show up on a photography shoot and get you to take some photos and put a video together. We actually come there with a plan. I annoy you enough that we're by the time you get there, you know exactly what's happening and what we're doing. And we've got a few things that we try and keep creative.
Yeah, 100%. And with the agent intro, because this is something for buyers as well, sorry, for sellers as well. And this could be for you, George. Do you feel that when agents do agent intros, is it about selling the agent, or is it about connecting the property with the agent and selling the dream and the lifestyle more than anything else?
Look, agents are very, very special and important beings.
Very diplomatic way of saying that.
Yeah, look, I've got a big ego. I love it. I love getting out in amongst the press and the public persona of what we do. But at the end of the day, I think when it does come down to the marketing, it's something that we do take very seriously. It's about the property, it's about the lifestyle, and ultimately, if we're not generating inspections to get people out there to experience it and then make offers and create competition for our vendors, our sellers, then we're not doing our job. The industry has gone down a route of Instagram celebrity status, and that is important because it does give the industry a profile. And there's a lot of pressure on those agents to uphold the profile because they are going out into the community with a big public profile, and they need to live up to expectations. We tend to not focus on that too much. We feed our egos in other ways, and doing long drawn out intros. I think it also comes to at what stage of the career an agent is in, and that's why it's been refreshing. I mean, Connor and Harrison have been in it for a long time now, but when we started, they didn't have that desire to be in front of camera and create their own self-image. I certainly didn't have that. I loved it. I'd sit on the log with my dog, Anzac, and we'd do an intro. There's actually one that pops up on my Bluetooth feed all the time for a little property down on Johnson Road, and I listen back to it and go, goodness me, that was just all about the George show.
Yeah.
So Harrison and I, like we sit down before every photo shoot we go to. We sort of get an understanding of what we want to do for a video. But we fall more into the line of instead of just making the video about us, we want to make it about sort of a connection to the community. So we don't just stand and read lines because that's boring. Like every agent goes, "This is the best house ever." With every single home, this is the best house ever. That's boring. That's stale. So we go into the storytelling. Yes, we give a bit of a speech and all that sort of stuff about key points and all that sort of stuff, which you got to point out. But like a recent one that we did, 3 Middleton's Lane. We took my dogs, family dogs out, and we sort of played the game with them and all that sort of stuff. And it got to a point where, my blonde Labrador, he loves jumping for the ball. So, or the stick, which is what we tried to get him to do. But he second guessed himself and just sort of fell off the dock into the dam.
And I almost saw Connor jump in and save the dog as well. I do remember that. That was fun.
But instead of cutting that out, we left it in. And we found that, a couple of weeks after, at open homes and just general conversation with people brought it up.
Oh, good. So it means that they're watching the videos and it's a conversation piece when you're talking to them with open homes. So that's exactly what it's supposed to do. So yeah.
Another one similar to that is I think a few weeks before that photography shoot, I jumped up on a horse in a full suit.
And who'd also never been on a horse before?
No, I'd been on a horse before.
Oh, okay.
I was a bit concerned when I asked if it was a sound horse beforehand. They're like, yeah, it's fine. It's a sound horse. It just doesn't like loud noises or dogs. And I was like, oh.
So what did we do? We started up the loud car, right?
Yeah, it was but people would show up to the open home and they'd be like, oh, you were on the horse. Like it's something memorable. People do remember things like that, and it gives a bit of personality behind it.
Yeah. And George, you were mentioning something about a good time in winter because your property is one of a few rather than one of many in the summer period. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Look, there's less traditionally, there is less property on the market in winter, but there is still competition. We're not in an isolated market, Pat. And that's why the photography starting from square one needs to set a point of difference. And that's why we bring in the human element, because humans like to look at humans. And then that progresses to, when we've got our open homes on, we try and do that at a strategic time for our owners, and how we access the properties throughout the week for inspections as well. Because one thing we have to remember is that while we are marketing in winter and the outsides of the properties don't have that general sort of green beauty that you get in a spring or a late summer market, every other property that they're looking at is also in the same boat. So you're not in isolation. So that's why when we talk about making sure that photography is actually done in winter, so that when people turn up to the property, they're not disappointed. They're not going, well, it looked better in the photos and now it doesn't look as good in the flesh.
Yeah. I've got one here, and it's probably pretty broad. What do what do sellers need to understand, or vendors are the same word, sorry. What do vendors need to understand about selling in the winter market? Just like, is it ever a conversation that comes up when you're sitting at doing a listing presentation, and how do you help navigate that talking to vendors.
You sell when you're ready to sell. When you've made the decision to sell, you engage with your agent and you sell. The exception to that rule is sometimes the extremes of both ends of the season with rural property. Getting around a property in the middle of a wet winter is difficult. We've done it before. My Hilux spends a lot of time getting pulled out of bogs. Generally speaking, you sell. Oh, Harrison, it's so funny. Generally speaking, you sell when you've made the decision to sell. That's why we talk about settlement periods with our clients. We're coming in now and we've set this standard in the market that we're getting invited into homes
Way early.
as a team way earlier so that we can help people plan. We're not just turning up to here today hoping that you and Claire sign up so that we've got a job for next week. We would have liked to have had the discussion with you for 3 or 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes we come in and we find out what your desires are and you say, look, we'd like to be settled into a new home by November. That means we need to work back from that date. Your bank financing, how you're going to structure that. And the reality is you might need to be on the market in winter.
We've been working in property at the moment that we've been speaking with owners of that home for over 6 months now.
Yeah, wow.
Been going through a few other things in the background, but we've put a lot of work into it. It's finally come to fruition. We've got a lot of work going into
And out of
getting-
curiosity, what are some of those conversations broad term? Are they're not ready, getting the property ready? What are those conversations?
Depends. It varies on each person. In this case, it's just going through probate, things like that. But then you're also dealing with a lovely older home that does need a little bit of a touch up here and there. So going and getting quotes done for gardening,
organising
starts, a bit of repairs here and there. But you go to that extra length to get a property ready for sale. And even though we are coming into the winter months, it's a beautiful older home in Yass, and it'll be something that we'll be able to make the most of and get a really good photo shoot and get people involved. I think we're getting your dad's FJ out there, so like we're bringing in more than just taking photos. We're trying to bring an experience
And that story, which is what we keep harping on about, telling that story about that property, I think is very important to do.
And Pat, that's the flexibility that we enjoy in working with Panorama around getting that story told. I go back to some of the shoots that we've done and it's been amazing storytelling. It doesn't just happen.
No.
We haven't got the resources of, Paramount or Netflix to throw people at these scenarios. But we do have time and we can take that time to not so much find out what the story is, that comes naturally when we're dealing with other humans, but making sure that we can tell that story through taking the time to get the shots right. And we've created some amazing
But
moments.
that only comes when you understand, and you guys have done most of the hard yards for us, which is the back and forth and understanding the property and the history and what makes that property special and all that sort of stuff. And then you're just directing me on the day on what elements we need to focus on, because at the end of the day, a big rural property, I only know it as much as literally what's physically in front of my face and where I'm being directed. Obviously we have our skills and things that we know that could be touch points in the past, but we sometimes don't always get it right. But having agents to help guide us through that storytelling is when we create some amazing stories. And yes, there's so many projects that we have done together that have been absolutely special. And I love driving out to Yass and Maribam and going, fuck yeah, what's today's shoot gonna be? Could be anything.
keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
Element of it, Pat. You've got an amazing editing team here behind the cameras working hard. What are they editing out of the photography and the video? It is a fine line that, we as agents, we struggle with it a little bit. You're going into, 20 homes every 2 days. Are we telling too much of the story?
No, I think from, the time that we have on site and the time that then gets into editing, I think it's just enough time. Like some days I do go, maybe there should be more, or maybe we should do this. But I think that's what makes Panorama really good, is being able to jump into a scenario, especially because we do like a huge volume, like 1,500 a year properties, trying to then go to, all right, we're dedicated on this project. What makes it special? Have conversation with the owners, have conversation with the agents, and then pull that all together relatively quickly and go, okay, so we now need to know what we need to focus in on. And you said about editing, we find that we don't chop much out because we're that good. Not to be out myself, but we're now that good at telling the story because we know exactly the formula that needs to be used in order to, and framework, I think is a good word, to make the project special and make each property special. Even though every house is different and every house has its own features, there is still a framework that you can use to help tell that story, whether it be, all right, well, let's get the person out on the quad bike, let's get the dining area set, let's get the pool area set. I went to this gorgeous property yesterday in Young, and everything was awesome about it except for it had no furniture in it. So it would have been an amazing property, and you could have told an even better story if we could have staged it or had a little bit more time to do it. So, like, when you say time, that's what I mean. It's sort of like I'm getting there and only presented what's in front of me. I'd be great to say, hey, Pat, we've got something on the market. We're struggling with X. What do you suggest we do? Or I've just walked into this home and I've appraised it. They're going to go with us, but I don't know what to do from this point. And I've had so many conversations with both agents and homeowners, giving them advice on where to go next and what to do and how to achieve it, to get the best story told out of it. I think, yeah, really good point, George, there. So, Harrison, with some of these longer conversations that you've been involved in with some of these large properties, what are those things that you're doing, or without giving away all of your secrets, that you're asking homeowners to get ready or to get done in order to make sure it's the best it's going to be to make the best sale price it's going to get?
You got to judge it case by case. We go through multiple different things. If it's a property that's going to be vacant, obviously we do go down that stage of looking at staging and seeing how we can bring it a bit more alive. If you've got a family already living in it, maybe helping out with a few things, getting trades through, organizing stuff like that, just to help out, because people don't always have the time to prepare a house for sale. You don't realize until you go to sell your home how much stuff you have.
Oh, yeah.
And getting all that organized.
Yeah. Especially some of the ones where they've been homeowners in our cases where it's like 20, 30 years living in the home, and then what do they do with all their stuff? When, like, where does it go? And a lot of people ask, do I move out or do I live with what I've got? Yeah, what's that conversation? Do you get that asked that? Like, should we move out before we sell, or should we use our own furniture? Like, what are some of those conversations?
We've actually got a bit of a secret weapon there. We use a lovely lady out in Murray Bateman. She's actually able to come in. She doesn't do full staging. She does partial staging. So she'll come through your home, be able to take photos and run through an action plan of what furniture you want to keep, what sort of additional things she can bring to the house. So bringing some brighter pillow cushions, a throw, new bedding, all that sort of stuff. And that way you're not having to lift up your whole life and change everything that you're doing. You can have a little bit of normality there, but you can add a little bit of an extra touch to it all that brings a bit more of a premium look to your property.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, awesome. And so, Connor, is there anything that Harrison may have missed that in these long conversations that you think is important to talk about?
I think Harrison's great at what he does, but at the same time, like, we're a group of young blokes, so we're not the best at absolutely everything. We're great at selling homes. Harrison uses a lot of professionals. They come through and they do the job properly, and it's not a half-assed job. You don't walk in and there's things that are there that shouldn't be there. Everything is strategically placed, but in a way that people can still live in their home. And then we get comments months after, kind of thing, saying, oh, that person that we used for this was fantastic. We want their details, we want their contact, because they were so good. And they show in the photos and all that sort of stuff as well. So I think just using professionals and not us doing absolutely everything works really well.
Yeah, awesome.
And those professionals are coming through exactly the same as a buyer will.
Yeah.
Being presented to the property
For the first time.
That's unique. And that's one of the pleasures we have working with Pat, because he's got a dedicated off-site. They're not coming to the shoots with this editing team. The editors are going through the photos, and if it doesn't appeal to them, well, we're not picking it up. We're not running with that shot.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree.
It's just that storytelling piece too. We had a vendor the other day, and it was such a cool suggestion. Beautiful home, very warm, like genuinely very warm, because the fire's always. He said, could we put out some dried apple from the garden? And it's added a completely different feel to the open homes. It's such a simple, small gesture, just some dehydrated apple slices there. I got a guts full, and then that really caused some havoc for the rest of the day driving around town trying to do open homes. But the fact that it was it was produce out of the garden, we enjoyed it. It added a bit more of a homely feel to it. because it's a home that's got a beautiful veggie garden, a beautiful orchard. It's in the middle of Murray Bateman. So it epitomises why you want to come out there and live in that lifestyle. And that's where we sort of build up those trust credits with our clients. And those ideas don't come from us. They come from us being curious with our owners and not being too arrogant to think that we know all the answers.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really good. And that sort of brings me to the question. Obviously, in the last, I mean, since I started real estate marketing, there has been a huge shift in just taking photos of property to actually taking this storytelling approach. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we are the buyers and vendors and people are looking for um marketing things that are done well? Like I think I know the answer to this, but I don't know. What do your guys take on it?
Oh, I mean, Pat, we pioneered when we kicked off our post-school professional relationship between your photography business at the time and our real estate business, in the sense that we were using a professional photographer. You know, the first few years of my career, I was still running around with a Canon 60D, which was pretty flash at the time. I even got one of those cool flashes that went on the top of it. And that was great. And I loved photography. And I still love getting involved with the photography. Sometimes, I must admit, some of the most amazing photos that have been taken with panorama, I did take some of them.
Yeah, it's like the shoot we were at the other week that you were taking 20 photos of a snake on a gate.
That was pretty cool, though. We got I had some comments out of Europe this week, actually, saying how cool was it?
The snake on the gate. Oh, there you go.
But generally speaking, we sort of took the approach that if we were going to do something professional, we get professionals in to do that aspect.
Yeah, it's like everyone taking a big step up, right? They go, yeah. It's not just about, oh yeah, but I'm a sales agent. Well, yeah. Do you want to be a sales agent, or do you want to be a sales agent who can do everything themselves, or do you want to be focusing on what you're really good at, and then let the other professionals come in and take care of it for you? Yes, it may cost you more as a buyer, as a seller, sorry, in the long run, sorry, in the short term, but in the long run, you are going to get way more out of your property and better bang for your buck in terms of a better result for the sale, because this extra level of care is taken, right?
Yeah, and the way we operate as a team is basically making sure that at the end of the process, as my late uncle Robert used to say, we want to do everything to make sure there is no stone left unturned. And so that starts from engaging the professionals and making sure that we take the time with what Harrison does in getting the homes ready for market. And we go through the process of making sure that our ready buyers who are actually pre-qualified and have spent lots of time on the phone with Connor and our advisors in the mortgage broking world, they're ready to go through and look at the home. They're emotionally and financially ready to purchase. And then when they come out of the process, we're just ticking off to make sure everything's been done. Was the photography done correctly and told a story? Tick. Have we called back every single buyer that we could have within a very short period of time and engaged with them? Have we generated the inspections? Have we then generated the interest and the offers? And then we can sit down with our clients, who are the ones who engage us to do the work, and say, hey, we've done everything we can as a team to get the job done. Us running around and doing photography, as much as I love it, and cooking. Correct. Cooking egg and bacon rolls on the top of a rock, out the back of Yass. You can't have a better way of starting the morning.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of not our job.
No, 100% agree with that. And I wanted to bring it back home to, if you're a real estate agent, going, well, I don't know if I need to take the shift to get a photography company in. I think now is a leap to do so. And the reason for that is, and especially in our case, is we are professionals in taking photos and telling stories and marketing. You're professional in just getting that house sold and getting buyers in the door and closing those buyers, right? That's what you're good at doing. You're good at talking the talk. We're good at telling the story. So now's a really good time to do that.
Huge, Pat. And if anyone, pick up the phone, give me a call. I will endorse what we're talking about here, both on camera and off camera. The Panorama team, it doesn't matter who you get with the photography, they're all trained in our shoots, whether it be a big rural shoot, whether it's a unit in town, it doesn't matter what it is, they're all trained in every different aspect. They all give us plenty of time to be able to get that message across through the storytelling. But more importantly, it's about making sure that we're working as a team between the marketing agency, Panorama, and our business, Ray White, to get the best result for the client. We're not out there butting heads or trying to come up with the latest and greatest.
We're in our own lane, but sharing and collaborating together.
There is a fundamental need for keeping the professionalism within the relationship between the client and the services that we provide. Pat, I know it's your podcast, but anyway, I'll take over the show. This is my ego stroking moment. I've always wanted to host a podcast. Tell me what goes on behind the scenes to get this happening.
So obviously, Claire and I come up with the topics, and we've put that together with our bigger marketing plan of what we're sort of talking about in a year. And it just so happens that we're falling into winter, so that's why this podcast exists. So you got the planning stage. Then we go, okay, who do we think is going to match up well with guests on the show? Like Claire and I could chat away to each other and it'd be fine, but bringing in experts in their own world is super important. So we go out to our clientele and even sometimes not our clientele and ask them if they want to host our to be on our podcast, and then send them stuff. We go through, we shoot it, which is what we're doing now, and then from there it goes into editing. It's about a week worth of editing, and then it's on YouTube as a full production, and we can then take that and put it onto Apple Podcasts. But what the best thing that these podcasts do is not the long form. I don't have an hour to sit down and listen to a full podcast. Even I don't have an hour to do that for my stuff. Yeah. But what I'm saying is people's brains are short. So we've also come up with this strategy of chopping together tons of these shorts together, which are like 30 seconds to a minute and a half of little topics and little quotes that we've said throughout the podcast, and share those on socials. And they become really good thought leader posts and strategies to help promote your business or promote any aspect of what's going on next. And it means, for the social media point of view, that people are engaging longer because they're strapped in and understand this super exciting, intense little segment. It's like a mini segment within a show sort of thing, that gets people engaged and understand, oh, hey, maybe I should go talk to Panorama or somebody else, to see what they're about. I'm doing it at the moment with another real estate agency. We're helping host the podcast, but she's talking about 90 days till sold, and how her real estate business helps within 90 days get property from all the way to listed to all the way to sold, and the process behind that. And we put together a series of podcasts to make that happen. So podcasting it's the new craze at the moment, and I think it's only going to get better because it's the best way to get long, complicated topics broken into segments and ways that can be easily digestible by your audience. So yeah, that's why I would suggest doing a podcast.
Pat, if you don't mind me asking you a question, obviously it's your podcast, but I like to
Hijacking the show. Yeah.
It's good for my ego. Tell me, we ring up, we make a booking, then there's a briefing that comes through. Most of the time it's from Harrison, or it might be me driving along with an idea at 5 o'clock in the morning. What do you do though that we don't see to prepare for the shoot? Because what it looks like is booking made, little brief on the telephone, and then you turn up, and then we end up with this amazing content.
Well, it's taken a long while to get to this stage, but what we do at Panorama is we look at the booking, and we then, first of all, we research the property. We used to sit down on Google and actually go through and Google the property, look at it. 6 times out of 10, there'd be photos from previous listings, so we could get a pretty generic understanding of what the property is. But then we go onto Google Maps from what we can't see and figure out that. Then I actually plan out, okay, what shots are going to work well and what not. Again, because we've been doing it so long now, I can have a guess going, okay, if it's been 5 years or 10 years since this property was last sold, it's most likely renovated inside. So we're preparing that it's going to look better and be more amazing. So preparing for that. And then it's just becoming, again, following the framework that we've created at Panorama to make sure that each shot is the same for each house, but different, in a way that we captured a kitchen, we've captured a bedroom, we've captured blah, blah, blah. And going through that process, ticking off it all systematically. If there is anything from the brief in particular that we need to cover, we prepare that. So, for example, sometimes we need actors, sometimes we need voiceover artists. So we've got to go in the background and prepare all of that. We've got to write scripts. Sometimes we did that with a client this morning. We had a script. We got the site and we had to rewrite the script on site. So like we've got that all there, but it's all prepared. It's all process driven, a way to just plug and play. And that's why you see it and it walks so smoothly, is because process. It's just plug and play to the next job on. And that's why we stick to real estate and the building industry in general, because we've nailed a process that just is of this industry. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously all of that preparation, when we, we had a lot of fun out photographing and videographing, or whatever you call it, capturing the moment with Ginninderra Falls. There was so much behind that. We had finite time because we did have, people acting.
That was a classic example of plan, and then throw the plan out the window. Like literally, that's what it felt like. Like
Most of it.
yeah, well, Ginninderra Falls was a pretty cool project. From the fact that we got to do, which we don't normally do, but because the project was so big and so special, just overall, we got to do site visits. So I got to understand before I started rolling the camera what was the most interesting part of the thing. Have conversations with other key stakeholders. We had marketing team, copywriters, the homeowners themselves, the agents, all of those people involved on the first call out to understand what their vision was for the property, and bringing that vision then into reality and creating, okay, what's fluff? What are they talking about that's they think is exciting, but is it actually going to sell? And what's actually important that is going to help it sell? So then Claire and I sat down and we wrote out a marketing strategy for that, and then what we were going to do for the day. Then we had the owner come in and try and help us with getting talent. Then Harrison helped bring in a couple of, who did we have, the YMCA or Upward Bound?
Yeah.
Having them come in and then coordinating all the peoples and timings and all that sort of stuff. And then you get to on site on the shoot, and you rock up and there's a big blanket of fog over the entire property. And you're like, well, we can't do any of the fucking on site. So we had to rejig the entire day when we did it. We sort of, and then people rocked up sooner than they were needed. And then we had to figure out when to shoot them. So thankfully, years of experience comes into play here. And you go, okay, what can we utilize when and how to have parents with young kids first up, even though it's foggy, it's okay. We're doing a little scene with them on a beach. Then we have Outward Bound. They've got quite a bit of gear to set up, right? They need to have that set up. That took most of the morning to get them set up. Then we can shoot in the afternoon, and then away we go. And then, the plans happen to then be adjusted to make new plans. And I think that's why, at least since we've been doing it together, we work so well, is we've had these ideas and thought processes in play for so long, and then just being able to feed off each other, going, yes, this we just know what we need to know to get it done. Happened when we were at Forbes the other week, having big muddy fields and literally shooting what looked like a paddock plain of nothing, but how can we tell a story there? Let's figure it out. Let's, all that sort of stuff.
And it's always amazing when you throw those curveballs in. The Panorama team just make it happen, especially when you're dealing with outside talent. They don't understand what's going on behind the scenes and the frustration, and neither do the owners sometimes. So you have to maintain that sort of professional, fun environment where people are willing to get involved.
And we've also got to make them and we've also got to make them excited to be there, because the moment that the photographer or whoever's shooting it looks scared, nervous, or whatever, is the moment that the whole quality of the project goes out the window, because they go, well, should I be doing a better job, or should someone else be doing a better job? And at the end of the day, you just have fun with it, and experience helps, and we'll make it together. So yeah.
And full credit to you, Pat. I know you're a very humble guy that leaves the ego behind, but the video footage that we took on that day out at Ginninderra Falls and then got cut together has basically resulted in the Apex film being filmed here.
When I heard that Netflix saw that, and I also got another job through the Apex film as a result of some of that, that was pretty cool highlight career moment to say, that we got a internationally recognized company to see little old Canberra, and enough that it's going to be set in a feature film. That's pretty awesome.
But not only that, Pat, like 350 jobs, 100 of them created here locally. You know, like we're just small businesses, but to be able to go out and create that effect,
Yeah, it's
was just
when
so
when
credit to you.
thank you, and I think that's all what that's what I love about my job is we create moments and imagery every single day that is special and that does drop jaws most of the time. And what it's not about the content. Yes, the content's cool and what we create, but it's about the lives we change as a result of it. Helping sell the biggest asset in someone's life. I get a smile on my face every single time after knowing what they've been through, all the triumphs and tribulations of what they're going through, and to get that sold for them is a really rewarding feeling of what we do. So yeah, cool. Thank you, George.
No trouble.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, guys. I don't have anything else more to say. Connor, do you have anything?
No, all good.
Harrison, you're good?
I'm all good.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Awesome episode of Honey the Photographers here, and we'll see you on the next one.